It's NFL player prop time for week 3. Let's freaking go! What's going on, everyone? Welcome back in to another episode for Just a Bet Outside. I am your host, Steven, and baby, oh baby, we are one day away from some more NFL football. That's right. This is the NFL player props video, and believe it or not, I have 8 of them. That's right. 5 player props, 3 anytime touchdowns. I absolutely love the slate this weekend for player props. Not as much on the game bets as you saw on the Wednesday video, which, by the way, go check out that Wednesday video to see my best bets, Ryan's best bets, some research help, and our head-to-head bet as I tried to get my first win over him finally. But yeah, before we dive into this video, and by the way, I'm going to have a couple college football bets real quick to start out too. Be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment, help those algorithms, help this channel grow like you guys have been doing. It's so awesome. On the path to 7,000 subscribers. And if you are new to the channel, hit subscribe. We have a video out every Sunday night, Wednesday night, and Friday night during football season. Every weeknight for baseball and about to be every weeknight for NBA basketball. That's right, it's almost here. So here we go. Here is the outline of the video. I'm going to give you a couple college football bets. We're going to talk the most and least fantasy points given up to running backs and wide receivers through 2 weeks. I think that can help with betting, and it can also help with your fantasy lineup. So it's kind of a good tool to see what teams play what positions well. And then I'm going to give you my 5 best NFL player props, finishing it off with the 3 best anytime touchdown bets where we went 2-1 last week. So here we go. Let's start out with a couple quick college football bets. I don't dig into as much research on college football. That's why I just give them out for free on Discord, just kind of, giving you guys some ideas, some opinions. We went 3-0 last week, though, so we'll take it. So 2 bets I have right now. Middle Tennessee State -4. They're at home playing Colorado State. What a freaking letdown spot. Colorado State plays Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes to double overtime last week, loses the game, now has to go on the road to play Middle Tennessee State when they have another game next week to open the conference. This is just a terrible spot. I think they're going to come out flat. I expect Middle Tennessee State to win pretty easily. Give me Middle Tennessee State -4. The next one, it's a player prop in college football. I don't usually do these, but it's Malik Neighbors over 86.5 receiving yards. This is a guy with LSU, guys. This guy can play some football. If you watched him last year in the SEC title game, he had 128 receiving yards versus Georgia. And oh, by the way, Georgia knows how to play some defense. LSU now goes up against Arkansas. Nothing special, in my opinion. Neighbors had 239 yards last week. I know it wasn't against as good of a team as Arkansas. But, I mean, this 86.5 is too low. This guy's going to be playing on Sundays. This guy is a special player. So give me Neighbors over 86.5 receiving yards and Middle Tennessee State -4 as my 2 college football bets for week 4 in college football. All right, it's time to talk some football, and it starts out with the fantasy help. All right, let's start out with the teams that give up the least amount of fantasy points per game to the running backs through the first 2 weeks. As you can see, the Tennessee Titans they just swallow up running backs, guys, giving up only 7.9 fantasy points per game. Now, if you're taking this into account in betting, it can't help. Obviously, if they're giving up 7.9, they're not giving up many catches, many yards, touchdowns, really anything. Them and the Cowboys are absolutely dominating through 2 weeks. And then you got the Jags, Falcons, Ravens. Chiefs have played pretty good defense the first 2 weeks. And then, Commanders haven't played the best teams. They're about to play the Bills, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, those are the top 10 teams giving up the least. Now let's go check out who is just absolutely struggling versus running backs. Look at this, guys. The Pittsburgh Steelers are giving up over 31 fantasy points to running backs through 2 weeks. That's per game. And then we got the Raiders, Panthers. The surprise would probably be maybe the Patriots. The Seahawks give up a lot of catches to running backs. Houston Texans are just struggling mightily. And by the way, the Houston Texans have given up a buttload of rushing touchdowns already to running backs. So that's a big reason why they're there. But other than that, the Dolphins struggle versus the Chargers week 1, so not a surprise there. But yeah, I don't know if this helps you guys out, but take a screenshot if you want, help your fantasy lineup, help some betting just in positional if you're betting some player props and things like that. But let's move over to the best teams giving up the least amount of fantasy points to wide receivers. Cowboys up there again, 14.65 points per game to wide receivers. Obviously, this isn't just wide receiver 1. This is all the wide receivers. And then we got the Cleveland Browns, Carolina Panthers. Packers are playing good D. Obviously you got Zaire. It kind of helps as your DB. But, Falcons, some of that might be because they run the ball and run the clock out a little bit. But This is a kind of top 10. Nothing really surprising to me except maybe the Houston Texans. We do know that they've been a little better against the pass, well, much better because they struggle against the run mightily. And then Saints and Dolphins. Dolphins, that's impressive considering they gave up a ton of yards in Week 1, but most of that was to the running back. So those are the top 10 teams that give up the least amount of fantasy points. Now let's see who absolutely struggles to cover receivers. And the Tennessee Titans there at number 30 are not a surprise at all. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, too. Chargers 57.1. I know a big chunk of that is week one to the Dolphins, but still, they weren't good last year. They're not good this year, defending the pass. Seahawks are struggling, 49.45 fantasy points. Just absolutely horrendous. The Eagles are the surprising team. The NFC champion Eagles are 45.6. They are absolutely elite versus the run with Jordan Davis and those Bulldogs up there on the defensive line. But they are struggling right now to cover people. And oh, by the way, Trayvon Diggs out for this season with ACL, I believe, for the Cowboys, which is a big loss to their secondary. So, other than that, yeah, that's those are the 10 teams that are struggling the most to cover receivers so far through 2 weeks. Now we're gonna have more info as we get later on in the season. I'm probably gonna let you guys know, which teams give up the most touchdowns to each position and all that, because I know you guys like to bet anytime touchdowns. So, not a lot of data yet, but we're getting there. So that's the fantasy help for today. And now it's time, baby, to get into my 5 best NFL player props. All right, bet number one is a rushing prop, and I absolutely love it. Here we go. Brian Robinson over 54.5 rushing yards at minus 115. This guy is a workhorse, guys. If you haven't watched him play, he's a great story right now. After what he went through last year, he has 18 and 19 carries the first 2 weeks, which seems kind of unheard of almost in the NFL nowadays. He's gone over these rushing yards in both games so far, 59 and 87 rushing yards. He is playing up against a Bills defense that got ran all over in their only road game with Brees Hall and the Jets. They did slow down Josh Jacobs last week, but Jacobs only had 9 carries, and honestly, Jacobs is absolutely horrendous. He has 28 carries for 46 yards. They have no running game for the Raiders. This Commanders' running game is much, much better. Assuming that Brian Robinson gets, let's say, 18 carries, which is he has 18 and 19 so far. All he needs to average is about 3 yards a carry to get over this. That's not very hard at all. I think he averaged over 4 yards a carry last week. The volume alone should get him over 54 and a half. Even if they're down a little bit, they're still going to stick with the run because they're not a team that wants to have Sam Howell throw it 50 times around the field. So I love Brian Robinson over 54 and a half rush yards at minus 115. I didn't make it an official bet on the anytime touchdown, but I also like Brian Robinson to get a touchdown as well. So that's bet number one. Let's move on to bet number two. All right, bet number two is another running back. We got Samaje Perine of the Broncos over 17 and a half receiving yards at minus 115. This line is just absolutely too low. He played more snaps than running back Javonte Williams last week. They brought him in to be a receiving running back out of the backfield, and he's going to do it. Sean Payton, you ever heard of him? He used Alvin Kamara quite a bit in that role also. Perine has the second most catches on the Denver team. That's right, the second most catches with 7. He's gone over this already in week 1 and week 2 with 20 and 37 receiving yards. Now, he is facing a Dolphins team who gave up 47 receiving yards to Eckler. They gave up the 7th most receiving yards to running backs in 2022. They're not a ton different. They're going to give up receiving yards. Honestly, 17 and a half, guys. He only needs like 2, maybe 3 catches. I love him. He has 4 targets in both games. 4 targets. If you get 4 targets, you're probably catching 3 or 4 because it's a running back. You're not going 15 yards down the field. That's plenty enough. Again, 18. That's all we need. Just 18 receiving yards. I expect him to do it for a third time. He's being used more and more in this offense since he's new to this team. So I think he's just going to take over. I expect him to get 25 to 30 receiving yards at least. So give me Perine over 17 and a half receiving yards as bet number 2. And let's move on to bet number 3. All right, we are going back to the kicker props for bet number 3. As you know, we are 2-0 on kicker props so far this year. Blake, Group A, I have no idea. Over 1.5 field goals at plus 130. That's right, baby. We got some value in this one. He just needs to make 2 field goals. He has made 2 and 3 field goals in the first 2 games. The Saints offense is absolutely perfect for field goals because they move the ball. They have the 10th most yards so far through 2 weeks, but they absolutely suck in the red zone. They have been in the red zone 8 times and only scored a touchdown 3 of those 8 times, which is like bottom 5 in the league right now in red zone touchdown percentage. So I think Group A is going to get at least 2 to 3 attempts. I just need him to make 2. Going up against the Packers, who play pretty decent defense, That's all I need. I need decent offense, decent defense. I don't want the offense to dominate and get in the end zone all the time. So I love Group A to go over 1.5 field goals for a third straight game at the value of plus 130. Let's move on to bet number 4. All right, the fourth bet is Jalen Warren, the running back for the Steelers, to have over 2.5 catches at plus 100. I have no idea what this line is doing at 2.5, guys, at even money. He has 5 and 4 catches the first 2 weeks. 5 and 4. He's gone well over this. In each game, he's been targeted 6 times in each game. 6. I have no freaking clue why this is at 2.5. All we need is three catches. Let's just say he gets 6 again. A running back will pretty much always catch 3 of their 6 targets because they're not hard throws, like I mentioned earlier. He is going up against a Raiders defense. Get this, that has given up the third most receptions to running backs through the first 2 weeks. 17. 17 catches already to running backs. The Raiders also gave the fourth most receptions to running backs last year with 100. So this is common for the Raiders defense. They cannot cover the running back out of the backfield. They love to hit Jalen Warren out of the backfield also. I'm going to be honest with you guys. When I watch them play, he's the better running back. He's better than Najee Harris. It may be an unpopular opinion. I think he is. He's definitely the pass catcher out of the two. So give me Jalen Warren again to get over 2.5 catches until the books catch up to this at plus 100. Let's move on to my fifth bet. All right, let's go. The fifth and final bet before we get into the anytime touchdowns, and I absolutely love it. Here we go. Deshaun Watson, not over the rush yards, over 30.5 pass attempts at minus 130. That's right. That is a bet, guys. We did pretty well on this last year. All right, I like it at 31.5 too if you have to get that. But the Titans allow the fifth most pass attempts versus them. Now, why do you say that? Why is that the thing? Because their run defense is absolutely elite. As you just saw in the fantasy points, they only give up 7 to running backs. They don't give up any yards to running backs. And their pass defense is absolutely horrendous. Now, when you have that, why would an offense just continue to run the ball right into them? The answer is they just don't, because you get absolutely nowhere. I know you got to run it a little bit to set up the pass, but there's just no point because they stop the run. The first 2 quarterbacks against the Titans so far, 31 pass attempts in week 1 by Derek Carr and 41 by Justin Herbert against the Titans. Guys, Deshaun Watson, this is the crazy part right here. He had 29 versus Cincinnati in a blowout game, 24-3 win. He had 29 pass attempts with Nick Chubb on the field, right? And then in week 2 against Pittsburgh, now we have a competitive game. Now Nick Chubb goes out halfway through. 40 pass attempts for Deshaun Watson. There is no Nick Chubb. We know that. He is done for the year. This should be a competitive game according to the point spread. We got a 3-point spread. And so here's the deal. Here's what happened in the game against Pittsburgh without Chubb and with Chubb. There was 25 plays that happened with Nick Chubb on the field. He had 11 of those 25 were pass plays. That's 44%. Okay. When Nick Chubb went off the field for 54 plays, he passed the ball 29 times for almost 54%, a rise of 10% in pass attempts. Now he gets an entire game and he's going up against a team that stops the run, and Ford's not going to do a lot against this defense. He's going to have to pass. We have a competitive game, terrible pass defense, a great run defense, no Nick Chubb. It all leads to over 30.5 pass attempts. He's probably going to be in the 35 to 40 range, to be honest with you. So give me Watson over 30.5 pass attempts is my fifth and final player prop. Let's move on to those anytime touchdowns. All right, let's go. I got 3 anytime touchdown bets. We went 2-1 last week. 2 of these are some juicy plus money. So here we go. Start out with Bijan Mustard. That's right, Bijan Robinson touchdown at minus 105. We already hit this earlier this year. He is as electric player as it gets in the NFL. If you haven't seen him play, you have to watch him play. He is must-see television. He can get this on the ground, in the air, whatever he wants to do. He had 23 touches last week. That's right. He has already completely taken over this offense. 23 touches, including scoring a touchdown. He's going up against the Detroit Lions in a dome. It's going to be a high-paced game, a lot of points. And the Lions defense, they just kind of suck. I'm going to be honest with you. They haven't looked good. I expect Bijan to have many chances to get a touchdown. Also, Detroit is dealing with a lot of injuries on the defensive front. So I also wouldn't mind a little sprinkle on Bijan 2 touchdowns. I think it's plus 500, plus 550. Not a bad option either. So give me Bijan anytime touchdown as my first one. Now my second one. Here we go. It's the receiver for the Vikings and not the one you're thinking. Jordan Addison touchdown at plus 200. Now, he's a rookie. He's only in his 3rd game. And guess what? He already has a touchdown in week 1 and a touchdown in week 2. And we're getting plus 200 for him to do it again. We all know Justin Jefferson gets all the attention, and it's really helping out with Jordan Addison. He's getting looks, and this team can throw the ball. If there's anything the Vikings can do, it's their pass offense. Kirk Cousins has played well for a couple games. The Chargers, oh my goodness, he's playing the Chargers. We all know how terrible they are at covering the pass. They have given up the most touchdowns to wide receivers through 2 weeks, 4 touchdowns. They've been bad for a while in their pass defense. I love Jordan Addison. I think he's going to go over his receiving yards also this game. But give me his anytime touchdown at plus 200 to score for a third straight game. Now, my third one, a little bit of a long shot. We're going Jake Ferguson, the tight end for the Cowboys, anytime touchdown at plus 290, which is insane. This is also an insane stat. He has the most targets in the red zone in the entire NFL with 7. That's right, 7 targets in the red zone. That's kind of important. That's how you score in the red zone. He has 5 targets inside the 10-yard line, 4 catches with 1 touchdown. This shows me that Dak and this team, they look to him to score. They do. And Dak's hit tight ends in the past to score touchdowns. Jake Ferguson is a big time target when it gets to the red zone. So the Cards also struggle to defend tight ends. They allowed last year the most touchdowns to tight ends with 12. They have also now allowed the 4th most yards to tight ends through 2 weeks this year. So, in general, they struggle to cover tight ends. They're not a good defense this year. We all know that. Ferguson, keep getting those red zone targets. I'll take my chances at plus 290. Those are my 3 anytime touchdown bets. Let's check out that bets recap page. All right, I went crazy with 5 player props and 3 anytime touchdowns. Brian Robinson, we got 2 B Robinsons to start it out in each column. But Brian Robinson over 54.5 rush yards. Samaje Perine for the Broncos that I am rooting for. Over just this week, by the way. I'm not a Bronco fan. Over 17.5 receiving yards. Group A over 1.5 field goals at the nice value of plus 130. Jalen Warren over 2.5 receptions at plus 100. And then Deshaun Watson over 30.5 pass attempts. It is juiced at minus 130. I also like 31.5, close to even money if that's all you can get. And then anytime touchdown, there it is. Bijan Mustard, Jordan Addison, and Jake Ferguson. Let's have a freaking week, guys. Let's win another week in football. Make it 3 in a row to start the season. Don't forget that best bets for week 3 NFL game bets is already out now. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Enjoy some football, and we'll talk to you later.